The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow over the small cafe, where the soft hum of jazz music filled the air. Amanda Brooks moved swiftly between tables, balancing trays with the ease of someone who had long grown used to the chaos. As a single mother, exhaustion was her constant companion, but knowing her daughter Felicia was quietly waiting in the corner kept her going. Felicia, a 5-year-old with bouncing curls and wide, inquisitive eyes, usually spent her time drawing while waiting for her mother to finish her shift. But today, something unexpected happened. The cafe door swung open and a tall man stepped in. Dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, he exuded power and quiet authority. Before Amanda could even glance his way, Felicia suddenly dropped her crayons, bolted from her seat, and threw herself into the stranger's arms, exclaiming, "Daddy!" The entire cafe fell silent. Amanda froze, her heart clenched in shock. Julian Carter, the renowned CEO of Carter Enterprises, looked down at the little girl in astonishment. Confusion flickered across his face. He had never seen Felicia before. But then why did his heart pound so hard? Amanda rushed forward, gently pulling Felicia away from Julian's arms. Her heart pounded as she felt every pair of eyes in the cafe locked onto them. "Felicia, what are you saying?" she whispered, panic creeping into her voice. The little girl simply looked up at her mother, then turned back to Julian, her tiny face glowing with joy. "Mommy, Daddy finally came to pick us up." The words sent a jolt through Amanda. She turned to Julian, who stood frozen, clearly just as stunned. I'm so sorry," Amanda stammered, her voice unsteady. "She must have mistaken you for someone else." But Julian's gaze remained on Felicia. His usually sharp gray eyes held a strange softness. There was something about this little girl, a connection he couldn't quite explain. "That's all right," he finally said, crouching down to her level. "Felicia, is that your name?" The little girl nodded eagerly. "You think I'm your dad?" Felicia grinned, as if the question was absurd. "I know you are. I saw you in my dreams. And now you're here." Her innocent declaration left both Amanda and Julian speechless. Amanda gently stroked her daughter's back, trying to calm her. "Felicia, sweetheart, you've never met your father, you know that, right?" Felicia blinked, momentarily puzzled, then simply smiled with certainty. "But I feel it, Mommy. He's right here." After a brief silence, Julian straightened, his gaze shifting to Amanda. "I don't believe we've ever met," he said, his voice steady but laced with curiosity. "No," Amanda swallowed hard. "I'm certain we haven't." Later that night, Julian sat in his high-rise office, staring out at the city lights, but his mind was elsewhere. Felicia's voice echoed in his head. "Daddy finally came to pick us up." The certainty in her tone unsettled him. He ran a hand through his hair, sighing. He had never met Amanda before, so why did this little girl look at him like she had known him forever? Unable to shake the feeling, his fingers hovered over his phone before he finally made a call. "I need you to look into someone for me. Amanda Brooks." Hours later, the first report came in. Amanda Brooks, 26 years old, single mother, working at a small cafe. No records of Felicia's father. She's raising the girl alone. Julian stared at the screen, a strange unease settling in his chest. At the same time, across the city, Amanda found a plain white envelope waiting outside her tiny apartment. She opened it, and a single sheet of paper slipped onto the floor. The messy black ink sent a chill down her spine. "Stay away from Julian Carter if you know what's good for you." Amanda tried to push away the fear creeping into her heart. The threatening note, it could have been a cruel joke. She didn't want to let it affect her job or make Felicia worry. So she kept working as usual, forcing herself to focus on customers' orders. But Julian couldn't ignore things as easily. Since that moment, Felicia had called him Daddy. Her voice kept replaying in his mind. She had been so certain, not a single trace of doubt in her eyes. And then there was Amanda. There was something about her that made him want to know more. 3 days later, he returned to the cafe. This time, when Amanda emerged from the kitchen and spotted him sitting at the corner table, she hesitated for a brief moment before walking over. "You're back again?" she asked, setting a fresh cup of coffee in front of him. "It seems like this place is growing on me," Julian replied smoothly, though his sharp gaze was fixed on her. Amanda gave a small, dry smile. I'm guessing it's not just for the coffee. Julian didn't deny it. He nodded. I want to know more about you, about Felicia. His words made Amanda tense up. The last thing she needed was someone, especially someone like Julian Carter, getting too close to her and her daughter. There's nothing interesting to know, she said firmly. Julian tilted his head slightly, observing her. You seem nervous. She stiffened at his perceptiveness. He was right. She was nervous. About the note, about Felicia, about Julian's sudden presence in their lives. But she couldn't tell him that. I'm just busy, she deflected, turning away. Before Julian could press further, another staff member walked in from the back, carrying a small package. Amanda, this came for you. She frowned, wiping her hands on her apron. Who would send me something here? The moment she opened the box, her breath hitched. Nestled inside was a small porcelain doll, its pale face eerily expressionless. It wore a delicate blue dress, the exact shade Felicia had worn just days ago. Amanda's fingers trembled as she reached for the note tucked beside it. Stay away from him if you know what's good for you. The words sent an icy chill down her spine. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. Someone was watching. Someone knew about her and Felicia. Amanda's face went pale. She quickly closed the box, not wanting Julian or anyone else to see. She didn't know who was doing this, but this was no coincidence. But things got even worse that night. After putting Felicia to bed, Amanda was tidying up the living room when she heard a noise. A faint click near the window. Her heart pounded. She grabbed the nearest object, a frying pan, and crept toward the sound. But before she could react, the window flew open with force. A shadowy figure slipped in through the gap. She gasped, instinctively rushing to Felicia's room, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. The intruder didn't linger. They slipped away into the night, but not before leaving behind a chilling warning. Next time, you won't be so lucky. Amanda's tiny apartment was no longer safe. Amanda's heart was still pounding as she double-checked the locks for the third time. She held Felicia close, listening for any sounds outside. The tiny apartment no longer felt like home. It felt like a trap. She had no other choice. With trembling fingers, Amanda picked up her phone, scrolling to the number she had found on the business card Julian Carter had left at the cafe. She hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and pressed call. The line rang only twice before Julian picked up. Amanda? His voice was laced with surprise. She swallowed hard. I need to see you. On the other end, Julian immediately sensed the distress in her voice. He stood up from his chair in his office. Where are you? At home, Amanda whispered. But I can't stay here. Wait for me, Julian said sharply. I'm coming. 20 minutes later, a sleek black SUV pulled up in front of Amanda's apartment building. When she opened the door, she saw Julian standing there, flanked by two men in dark suits. Clearly his security team. Grab whatever you need and come with me. His tone left no room for argument. Amanda didn't ask questions. She quickly packed a small bag, scooped up Felicia, and followed Julian to the waiting car. As they drove off, she didn't notice the shadowy figure watching from a nearby alley. Holding Felicia close in the back seat, Amanda finally felt a sliver of safety. They arrived at a luxury high-rise building with top-tier security. When Julian opened the door, Amanda was struck by the spacious, elegantly furnished apartment. You and Felicia will stay here for now, Julian said, handing her a key. This place has round-the-clock security. Amanda looked at him, emotions swirling inside her. Why are you doing this for us? Julian crossed his arms, his gray eyes locked onto hers. Someone is targeting you. I can't ignore that. She clenched her fists. I don't want to be a burden to you. His brow lifted slightly. Amanda, someone broke into your home. This is not something you can handle alone. She bit her lip before nodding. Thank you. Felicia yawned, nestling into her mother's shoulder. Mommy, this place is so pretty. Julian looked at the little girl, a strange feeling stirring in his chest. He didn't know why, but there was something about Felicia that felt familiar. As Felicia drifted off to sleep, Amanda gently laid her down on the bed. When she returned to the living room, Julian was speaking in low tones to one of his security guards. "Find out who sent those threats and who broke into her home," he ordered. "I want answers as soon as possible." Amanda overheard but said nothing. All she knew was that, from this moment on, she and Felicia were no longer alone. During their days in the new apartment, Felicia gradually grew closer to Julian. She loved sitting in his lap, listening to his stories, and would light up with excitement whenever he came home. Sometimes she even called him Daddy without realizing it. At first, Julian was taken aback, but he couldn't deny the warmth he felt around Felicia. He had always believed he was too busy for a family, yet now he found himself drawn to the presence of Amanda and Felicia in a way he never expected. As for Amanda, she was hesitant at first. She didn't want Felicia to grow too attached, but she couldn't ignore the truth. Julian wasn't just a cold businessman. He was protective, caring, and, despite his sharp exterior, had a warmth she hadn't expected. One night, after Felicia had fallen asleep, Amanda and Julian sat together in the living room. "I never really had a family," Julian admitted, his voice low. Amanda clasped her hands together. "And I've always been afraid I wasn't good enough to be a mother." They met each other's gaze, unguarded for the first time. Julian couldn't let this continue any longer. He ordered his security team to dig deeper into the threats and the break-in. It didn't take long for them to uncover the man behind it all, Victor Lang. The name made Julian's jaw tighten. Victor Lang had once been a high-ranking employee at Carter Enterprises, but Julian had fired him 2 years ago for financial fraud. After his dismissal, Victor found a new position at Henderson Corp., a rival company that had been trying to sabotage Julian's business dealings for years. Now everything made sense. This wasn't just about revenge. Victor was trying to pressure Julian into backing out of a major deal, and the easiest way to hurt him was by targeting Amanda and Felicia. That night, Julian confronted Victor in person. Inside a dimly lit private meeting room at an upscale hotel, the tension was thick. Victor Lang leaned back in his chair, a smug smirk on his face. "Long time no see, Julian. Didn't think you'd come here yourself." Julian said nothing. Instead, he tossed a thick file onto the table. The weight of it made a dull thud against the polished wood. Victor's smirk faltered. He flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning over photographic evidence, security footage, timestamps, financial transfers, each one sealing his fate. Julian's voice was calm, but his words cut like a blade. "I have enough to bear you, Victor." Victor chuckled, though it lacked confidence. "You really think the police will care about this?" He licked his lips. "Do you really want to make a scene out of this?" Julian leaned in, his steel gray eyes colder than ever. "You went after Amanda and her daughter. That was your mistake." A flicker of panic crossed Victor's face. His fingers twitched as if searching for a way out. And then, bam, the doors burst open. Police officers flooded in. Handcuffs clicked around Victor's wrists as he jerked in protest. "You can't do this to me." Julian merely watched, his expression unreadable. "I just did." The next day, Amanda read the news about Victor Lang's arrest, but she still couldn't shake the unease in her heart. The danger was over. But what about Julian? Without a reason to protect them anymore, would he leave? She glanced over at Felicia and saw her daughter happily drawing while Julian sat beside her, laughing softly. Her heart clenched. She had started to hope that he might be a part of their lives forever, but was that truly possible? After everything, Amanda and Felicia finally returned to their normal lives. But even though things looked the same, everything had changed. Felicia often asked about Julian. Every morning she would glance out the cafe window, hoping to see him walk in like before. "Mommy, is Mr. Julian coming today?" Amanda only smiled, but deep down she knew. She missed him more than she wanted to admit. That afternoon, when the cafe doorbell chimed, Amanda instinctively turned, and her heart nearly stopped. Julian stood there. He no longer looked like a detached businessman. Instead, he looked like a man searching for the most important thing in his life. This time, he wasn't here because he was worried about their safety. He was here because he wanted them. He stepped forward, stopping in front of the counter, his gaze locked onto hers. "I've gotten used to having you and Felicia in my life," he said, his voice steady. "I don't want to lose that." Amanda gripped the towel in her hands, emotions swirling inside her, but she hesitated. "We don't have a reason to be together anymore." Julian slowly reached for her hand, holding it gently. "We don't need a reason. We need each other." His eyes were unwavering, filled with sincerity, and in that moment, Amanda knew he wasn't here out of obligation. He was here because he had chosen them. A smile touched her lips, and the last of her walls crumbled. This time, she chose to believe in him. The sunlight cast a warm glow over the park, where Julian, Amanda, and Felicia enjoyed a peaceful picnic. Felicia ran across the grass, her laughter ringing through the air, pure and full of joy. Beside Julian, Amanda sat on a soft blanket, watching her daughter with a tender smile. She had never imagined having a moment like this, a simple, quiet happiness, the feeling of a real family. Suddenly, Julian reached for her hand, his touch grounding her in the moment. "Amanda," his voice was steady, warm. "Let me love you and Felicia, not because I have to, but because it's the one thing I want most in this life." She froze. No grand proposal, no contracts or conditions, just a promise. Simple, yet unwavering. Looking into his eyes, she saw the sincerity, the certainty. And this time, she didn't hesitate. A soft smile spread across her lips as she nodded. In that moment, she knew this wasn't just protection or obligation. This was the beginning of something real, a future full of promise, a story of family, love, and choice.